Good morning, YouTube. I wanted to stop by and answer a couple questions. First, someone had asked about Joseph, the father of Jesus, and if Mary was Sophia, what was Joseph? And so far, everything that I have seen indicates that Joseph was probably a representative of Yahweh, where you have Joseph the carpenter. Well, he's Joseph the constructor being, whether he's the father or if he's the demiurge. And that's part of the mystery of the whole Jesus thing. Was he Joseph's son, or was he not Joseph's son? But everything I've seen so far says that he is probably a representative of Yahweh himself, whether or not he's the ultimate good God or the demiurge. So yeah, I mean, and I have not found anything quite contrary to that yet, and if I find something different, I will definitely let you know. But right now, that's what I'm kind of thinking, is that Joseph is probably a representative of Yahweh himself. And where it talks about Yahweh, Joseph the carpenter, well, Joseph the carpenter is actually Yahweh the demiurge, the constructor being, or it could be Yahweh the Father, the good God, where Yahweh, there is no demiurge, and Yahweh just simply creates the universe. But in that case, either case, it appears that it kind of gives the appearance that Jesus came directly from Sophia, rather than from Yahweh himself. But yeah, that's what I got for now on that. And if that changes, I will definitely let you know. The other question I had was on Athena, and I did want to kind of answer it if I could. On Athena specifically, I have not been able to pinpoint it yet, but once you get back into Sophia, you're talking about Gnostic forms that existed probably for a couple hundred years before Christianity. So, and maybe even longer. And it would be difficult to pinpoint, because some of the stories for Athena appear to be, and a lot of these theologies are much older than the forms. So what happens is when they hit the Platonic forms, they just get re-envisioned. And the question ultimately is, did Athena ever become the form of wisdom in any theology? And that's possible. It's certainly possible, but I can't pinpoint it right now. And when we talk about like Semele or Demeter and the Dionysian cults, it's certainly possible. In fact, it's kind of likely that Semele ended up being a story of wisdom at some point, or Demeter, or Isis in the cult of Isis, or in the cult of Mithras. Again, I'm not particularly strong in any of those cults, but in the cult of Isis, Mithras, it's absolutely possible, absolutely likely actually, that there was some version of wisdom, whether that was a form or a deity. And again, deities and forms have a lot of the same functions. They seem to function the same, and it's just more of a matter of whether or not there's a story about them. When you read some of the Gnostic texts, there are some stories about that give the appearance of I guess polytheism, excuse me, where Sophia kind of gives the appearance of being a deity, but the forms function the same way, roughly. Forms produce things, and they can kind of act, so it's not 100% clear. In Christianity today, even when you get into the concept of the Trinity, Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, their only claim to monotheism is Platonic forms. That's it. If they erase Platonic forms, then they become polytheistic immediately. There's three different deities there, unless they're forms. So and this goes back into the Gnostic theologies as well. It doesn't matter how many forms there are. ran across some preacher talking about how Gnostics were polytheistic. Well, they were just as polytheistic as Christianity today. You know, it didn't matter if they had 3 or 20 or 300 forms. You know, it's just a matter of whether or not they deified them or not, or recognized them as deities. And even if they gave the appearance of recognizing them as deities, they still ended up with the claim of monotheism because they were actually forms, Platonic forms. So that's how weird this stuff is. And back on the mystery cults, it just depends on, you know, a lot of these theologies are older, and it just really depends on if those theologies were re-envisioned under the Platonic forms. That's basically it. So Athena, I can't pinpoint. Isis probably was, at some point, the form of wisdom. And then, you know, the Dionysian cults probably had a form of wisdom. And obviously Jesus, Serapion may have at some point. You know, but again, that's all comparative religion and not really necessarily my strength. But again, after about 300 really, after about 300, these Platonic forms start becoming more and more universal. They start hopping theologies, so, and ideas start to be exchanged. So when you see all this comparative stuff, when you see all these connections to other theologies, they're probably connected. They're probably connected through Gnosticism. So I'll throw all that out there. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye.